Robin, will you call roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. McNulty?
Here.
Mr. Bellis?
Here.
Mr. Pierce?
Here.
Mr. Freeman?
Here. All right, Robin, you want to read the staff report first?
I can.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. We are here tonight for a public hearing for rezoning case ZON-23-01. This is an application requesting an amendment to the currently effective zoning development plan approved under application 19127 to increase the permitted uses to allow for the construction of an assisted living facility. The site is located at 7920 Highfield Drive. They're on the corner of Highfield and Orange Road, and the total acreage is 3 acres. The current zoning is planned commercial and office district. The site is surrounded by planned industrial to the north, planned commercial district to the east and to the west, and then to the south and east and southeast is the multifamily planned residential district of the condominium development. You can see on the next page of the staff report, there's an aerial view of the site, again at the corner of Orange Road and Highfield Drive. And then below that is the proposed site plan. As a reminder, this zoning amendment is concerning the uses only. It's not necessarily approving the final development plan. So in terms of the uses being altered, additional permitted uses have been requested in section 14.03D to add healthcare facilities such as hospitals, medical facilities, nursing and assisted living facilities, and other similar healthcare facilities that provide rehabilitation services. This would also revise section 14.05F of the development text to allow for residential uses such as multifamily housing, apartment buildings, or single-family homes. Those would not be permitted. The current language is that no residential use of any kind is not permitted. Staff is supportive of this request, but we do recommend that the applicant amend this language slightly to clarify that this would only apply to District 3 in the text. Brett, if you can flip over to the graphic there, we can show you what we mean by that. So this this development text controls all 3 areas that you see highlighted in yellow there. So District 3 is that one in the upper right-hand corner where the proposed assisted living facility would be located. Again, we recommend just modifying the textual request to apply only to that area and not to the other 2 districts that are controlled by this development text as well, just to prevent any unintended consequences as a result of that and not affecting other people's properties who are not necessarily party to this amendment request. In terms of the site development itself, shown on preliminary elevations, primary building material is cultured stone with secondary materials of hardy board shake siding. They are showing a total of 36 parking spaces. Signage was not provided, but again, those would have to comply with the Orange Township zoning resolution. And the only other staff comment would be that we do recommend the installation of a multi-use path along the frontage along Highfield Drive for this property that would connect with the existing paths to the south along Highfield Drive and to the north along Orange Road. That's all staff has at this time. I believe the applicant is here if they would like to give a brief presentation. Yep.
Come on up and give your name and address, please.
Let me at this microphone, or
Doesn't really matter, but there would be best.
stay on my feet. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Jim Alt with ALT Architecture in Beaver Creek, about 85 minutes from here. And actually, we have another project going into Township right now that you're probably familiar with. In any event, I'm here tonight to just offer a few additional comments that Mr. Is it Duffy?
Correct.
We think that his presentation adequately captured the purpose of our being here this evening. Suffice it to say that the the scale and the size and the color and the massing and all of these features, and including the site itself, we think they're attractive and coherent and suit the neighborhood. This isn't a significantly large building as in height, multi-story, and so on. And the purpose of being here, we're hoping, in my layman's terms, is simply to request a clarification on what we think is a not completely clear language in the ordinance for our use. This being a medical and mental care facility as such. It's not a single family or multifamily residential facility. And we'd like to think that as assisted and various other forms of various tiers of care that will be provided in this facility fall within the language of a different part of the ordinance that addresses permission of or permitted use of assisted living. So that is pretty much our approach. And if there are to be any other more detailed questions on either the site itself or on the operation itself, the owners, who are township residents, are here with me this evening. So that said, if you have anything for me at this point, I'd be more than happy to try offering some clarification.
I would like to hear from the owners. I've heard from them before. I would love for them to make that presentation as to about their assisted living facility.
Sure.
And how many rooms, or what kind of staff, or how many people
Okay.
they expect to have. Give us an overview of what the facility they intend to build is.
I'd like to invite up Selu Damanani.
Evening. I'm Selu Demanani. I live right a few yards away from here. So, what questions do you have for me?
Your name and address first would be.
Sure. Selu Demanani, Dr. Banerjee Gudapati. My husband is sitting right there. 2296 Lewis Center Road, Lewis Center, Ohio.
I'd like to know about the facility itself, as to how large it is, how many people you expect to have in your assisted living. To clarify if this is an assisted living facility, how many you expect to have, staff, and just how large this will be.
Sure. Excuse me. I'm going to start with what kind of licensing we would be pursuing. It would be licensed under Ohio's State of Ohio Health Department, and it would be licensed as an assisted living facility. We would be building in 2 phases. The first phase would have 28 beds, all private suites with their own bathrooms. And sometime in the future, we would like to start building the second phase, which also consists of 28 rooms. Now, having said that, it could range from 26 to 28 bedrooms. That means we can house 26 to 28 residents each. We will be housing elderly residents above the age of 55 plus, who cannot take care of themselves at home and whose families need some additional help. So we will be housing anyone who needs any kind of assistance with self-care, primarily anybody with cognitive disabilities due to dementia. Loss of memory could be because of dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, traumatic brain injury, anything. So we will house these residents in private suites or shared suites if they are partners or spouses or siblings, and we'll be taking care of them 24/7. We will be using ancillary services from home health, in-house rehab, and hospice agencies as needed. We will have in-house nurses, administrators, dietary staff, and of course the main heartbeat of our business, which is the caregivers.
So we're only asked to approve the amendment to allow this, and we're not getting into details of this facility with respect. Okay.
Correct.
That's similar. Any other questions from the?
I have one question.
Mhm.
And actually, it's more for Robin. I noticed that they're asking to change the text, as I understand it, to allow for healthcare facilities such as hospital, medical facilities, nursing and assisted living, and similar healthcare facilities that provide rehabilitation services. That I understand completely, and I think pretty much fall in there. But then they have section 14.5, residential uses such as multifamily housing, apartment buildings, or single-family homes. That's where I get confused why that is thrown in there as well.
So 14.05 is the prohibited uses. So it's
Okay.
clarifying that those are the types of residential uses that would not be permitted in this district, as opposed to the current language, which says any type of residential use is not permitted in this district, which, according to our legal counsel, would prohibit a live-in facility such as this.
Okay, so that's the difference, is that the first, which is section 14.03, is allowed uses or permitted uses. I can use that term. And then we have prohibited uses, and that wasn't very clear in the cover letter here.
Apologies.
That was my question.
Just to clarify that again, I want to make sure I understand. So the first one, 1403, they're asking to include,
Correct. They are adding those as permitted uses.
and then to revise 1405 for it to allow for residential. So that's being added. Is that correct?
So let me pull up the exact language here. So 14.05.
Because that's what it sounds like, both in the letter and in the staff report. Because it says to allow for residential uses, as opposed to
Yeah, it's
prohibit.
very confusing.
Yeah. So I think the language in the letter is perhaps a little bit more clear than in our staff report, so I apologize for that. But if you can just imagine, section 14.05F would be to strike out what is there currently. So section 14.05F would read, residential uses such as multifamily housing, apartment buildings, or single-family homes. Again, those would not be permitted.
So if I have to guess here, I think part of the ambiguity is an assisted living facility is for longer term residents. Nursing homes we think of as, weeks to months of residence, whereas this is more of a permanent situation for the residents.
I can clarify on that. So skilled nursing facilities can house two kinds of residents: short-term rehab to home residents as well as long-term care residents. So pretty much all skilled nursing can also house both long-term care as well as skilled rehab to home. Whereas in assisted living facility, we obviously house residents who would want to spend their last few years with us because it's their care at home. It just gets too much of a burden of care, or they're not even qualified for a skilled nursing facility. Having said that, we do have residents who stay there for a few months to rehab instead of a nursing home. They can stay there for a few months, rehab with in-home therapy or outpatient therapy with house calls, and then they do go home. It doesn't happen a lot, but most of them do. But if you look at statistics, average stay in assisted living facilities is around 24 months. And in a memory care facility, which is what we are aiming for, it's even shorter. It can range anywhere between 10 to 14 months.
Well, I think we all understand the difference between an assisted living facility and an apartment building. From a semantic standpoint, they are both residential facilities, and that's where I think things get kind of gray in the zoning. And I'm not sure the best way to resolve that as a more general issue. I think that's something we ought to look at as we do the rewrite. I certainly have no objection. I think this would be, an excellent use for that particular property. And God knows we need more facilities like this. I'm just trying to figure out what the best way is to resolve this issue in such a way that it's not going to be an issue for every assisted living facility that ever wants to get built in the township. So,
May I,
yeah, go ahead.
my understanding is, and Robin, please help me out here, is that the ones we have already are generally either institutional or commercial. Is that correct? Depending upon their level of care.
Correct. So I did some research when we got this application in. So we have 4 other assisted living facilities in the township, and they are in planned commercial districts. However, there is not the language in those specific development texts that says no residential use of any kind. And so that is where this particular district differs from those.
Now, if the language is changing, actually, everywhere the yellow was would impact the entire, all of that area that you had.
Mm-hmm.
The entire, into that would become eligible for some sort of medical facility, or this language that healthcare facilities.
Correct.
So you're trying to just limit it to that District 3 rather than all of the yellow that we
Is
see
correct.
there.
Yes.
Oh, is that just, you're trying to limit it to just that?
So yes, so that is our recommendation as staff, that we amend the proposed language just slightly to have it be only for that district.
And it looks like this particular development is only going to take up about half of that.
Correct. It is not the entire district.
It's actually a third of the entire parcel.
You all have other facilities? I'm just curious.
In Indiana,
So in terms of the zoning, where we permit healthcare facilities, we also currently permit nursing and assisted living, or we don't. Because we have so many planned commercial districts in Orange Township, every district has its own unique text, and there are slightly different flavors for every 225. Wow.
Okay.
And historically, these situations have never had any complications. Never. They've always been in commercial districts. They just had to make these amendments. Here's what it is. Then deal. There's never been and had not been. That's what, and that's what's going to take.
Yeah. I mean, I could see where somebody who just wanted to be a pain in the rear end could say, well, that's a residential facility, and the zoning prohibits that. I think that's absurd under the circumstances.
Well, my concern is if we, quote unquote, allow for residential, what I don't think is appropriate there is like a single.
Correct.
Well, yes.
Based on the fact that it's Orange Road.
Exactly.
Drive. It's just Orange Road itself implies to me some sort of level, perhaps a commercial, or, you know, across the way by the railroad tracks, you're more industrial anyway. So I think this is a good in-between between commercial and the residential that's behind it. But like I said, what I would want to see there is allowing residential uses that could be a single-family home. Makes no sense whatsoever.
I don't believe that can even happen. I don't
Not-
think that can even happen under the current situations.
Yeah.
No.
Our current zoning director and the way things are already designated as commercial, and it's been commercial on Orange Road. I just don't even see a possibility.
Yeah. I'm just wondering whether we need somewhere some sort of a legal description of what is a nursing home, what is an assisted living facility, so that there's no ambiguity between this and, say, a small apartment building.
We can look at that and we can check with our legal counsel. Personally, I feel comfortable with the language as it is, healthcare facilities such as hospitals, medical facilities, nursing and assisted living facilities, and other similar healthcare facilities that provide rehabilitation services. To me, that is sufficient, but we can also check. with
Yeah,
our
that's
legal
pretty
counsel.
clear. My only issue is that we're then saying, but you can't use it for multifamily housing.
Correct.
And one could make the argument that assisted living is in fact multifamily housing
Well, I
with
would,
some services added to it.
It doesn't fit into that other description that you
yeah.
just read
And it
off.
already is in our zoning code under definitions, section 20.12, that assisted living facility is, quote, a building constructed to provide a continuum of long-term care services that provide a combination of housing, personal care services, and healthcare designated to respond to individuals who need assistance with normal daily activities in a way that promotes maximum independence. The individual housing units are located within a single building where access is provided from hallways extending from a common building entry point or points. So that is the definition, according to our zoning code, of assisted living.
Okay.
So I'm not too worried about,
Yeah.
I can't believe anybody can squeeze a multifamily in that definition.
Yeah. Okay. I just don't want it to seem like we're saying, well, yes, you can do it here, and then in the next paragraph say, but it's a prohibited use.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily opposed to some type of multifamily being down the rest of this space. If it, yeah, I mean, even if it doesn't happen with owners, I think that from a zoning perspective, it should be allowed. Now, what the board ultimately does, that could always change. So,
I think the traffic implications are different for multifamily than for assisted living. There just isn't the same amount of, people in and out all the time. You don't need the same amount of parking, that kind of thing. So I think squeezing a multifamily in there would be
yeah,
a little difficult. But
yeah,
still,
presumably the residents who here do not drive. It would be
Yeah.
staff and
Visitors.
Visitors,
Visitors.
exactly, staff and
Yeah.
visitors. And I assume there'll be like staff areas to park and visitor area to park.
and so what we're saying is multifamily would be specifically prohibited in that district
Yeah,
as a
and-
part of this.
yeah, I mean, I get that part, and I understand for these 3 acres, but the remaining portion, for me,
It's on Orange Road, it's already prohibited.
Yeah.
It's already prohibited.
I mean, what prohibits it though?
That's already in the.
It's a POC, right?
It is a planned commercial district.
Light commercial district.
Yeah. I mean, I'm all for high quality multifamily housing. That's just a terrible location for it. We got much better places to put it.
And we're only approving here tonight. Just-
Yeah, no, I
just
understand
the
that,
changes.
but I guess the question becomes, is this two different things we're approving, or are we getting this married together as one amendment?
I guess I don't follow. What would be the two?
Well, because in one, and I could be in support of both, allowing this to be the adding requested use,
Mhm.
and then the revision to say
Mhm.
to allow that versus not allow.
To clarify, can we see what 1405F says at the moment?
Sure. So again, these are prohibited uses. It says residential use of any kind is prohibited. So this would be revised. So strike out residential uses of any kind.
Right.
The revised text would say residential uses such as multifamily housing, apartment buildings, or single-family homes.
It seems to me like a change that is no change. We're just adding some specific examples, but we're not changing what it really means. So I certainly have no objection to that. Seems unnecessary, but I have a problem with doing it.
Any other questions or comments from the board? I'm gonna.
No, I'm good now that you've clarified the allowed and, or permitted and prohibited uses. And I actually think that this is an appropriate use. It makes a nice buffer between commercial and multifamily and residential. I have no objections to its use.
I'd like to open this up to any public comments. If anybody wants to speak, please give us your name and address and limit those to 3 minutes. And I'd also like to ask that if somebody's already made the comments you're going to make, then they've been made and don't duplicate them. You're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think,
Anybody wants to, that's great.
Yes. Jim Alt, not to add any additional level of complexity to it, but I'd like to at least offer one thing to consider, and that would be, well, first of all, I'm a state building code official, licensed by the state, and do enforce the building code in several jurisdictions. And the Ohio Revised Code uses a very well understood and commonly utilized distinction here, and that is that the use that we're talking about for this facility falls under the I classification for institutional. It does not fall under the R uses within the Ohio Building Code, and therein is the path that we frequently take in other situations like this, where we're asking for what is ostensibly, it can be a troublesome distinction. So I'm simply offering that as a guide that you may want to have your staff or your legal counsel go to as an option, because this is clearly this facility, if you grant its use, will be licensed under and will be permitted under the Ohio Revised Code as an institutional use, not as a residential use, very clearly.
Robin, it might be worthwhile to consider as part of the rewrite to insert the word institutional somewhere in these things.
Yeah.
Just to help clarify it and kind of link us together with the state.
I mean, but it's the state building code or the building code versus zoning code.
Right. I get that there's a big difference.
Oh, yeah, and I don't mean to suggest.
Residential code is, generally for single family duplexes. Once you get to a multifamily, you go to the commercial code anyway. And then you look at the various types.
And then you go into the R classifications within the commercial code, that's true.
Exactly.
1, 2, 3 family is in the residential code, you go to the commercial code beyond that, but you go into the R classifications, the residential classifications for the commercial code, you do not go into the I uses. And there are very, very robust new rules that apply once you come into the I uses, which this is clearly.
Yes, or dormitories,
Yeah.
things of that nature.
Anyone, please, that's here, if you'd like to speak?
I have some questions.
Name and address, please.
Dennis Burtko, 673 Spring Valley Drive. My big concern, well, it's not so much noise now that explained what's being built there, but the traffic impact on Highfield. Highfield is a disaster with traffic now, with a new commercial facility being built right down the road. And the alignment of this drive with Hidden Springs 2, is there any consideration to aligning these things? Is there any consideration? The speed limit's 25 and nobody's doing 25, I can attest to that. I have some commercial, what about the emergency services? How much time and use will they take from emergency services in the area?
What we're approving here tonight is just the change.
Yeah, well, these are things I want to point out.
Sure, because that'll come up once they come back for the final plan
Right.
And then fire has to approve it, and in and out.
Right.
And that's where those situations will get taken
Like
care of.
the,
That's-
Well, I just want to get those
that's all
things
future.
out and on a record.
The
And-
county
and-
engineer will figure out the road alignments and the curb cuts and things like that
I've seen
usually. And then, as Dennis said, the fire department does the emergency services. So they will comment on whether or not they have appropriate turn radiuses or appropriate access for either the ambulance
No.
or a fire truck or anything like that.
Well, we have two facilities close, and they're running all the time. I can attest to the sirens. And I want one question about the two vacant lots, one behind this facility and one to the, I guess, to the south of the facility. Are those zoned much differently, or can they be used for any commercial service? Now, the one facing Orange can go to commercial, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, what about the one to the south of this facility? There's a retention pond there, but just beyond that, there's a
No,
vacant area.
that is part of the condominium development.
That'll be part of this?
That is part of the current condominium development.
Oh, okay, that facility that's there, the condos that are there?
Yep.
All right, good, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jean Wolf, on 8224 Copper Top Lane. I'm just really confused. Can you put up the slide with where the Hidden Ravines, the courtyards at Hidden Ravines? There's something being built right on the south end of that property. Is this part of this development? Or part of, there's a big sign, Dublin Building. So it covers from Orange to where the black line is. I'm confused as to where this is,
I don't even know what you.
the development is.
So the parcel on the screen highlighted in the aqua blue there, that is the parcel that they're proposing for this facility. That parcel to the southwest, there is a commercial facility that is approved for that site as well. They will access onto Highfield. They will utilize the same access as this proposed assisted living facility.
Okay, so what's being, I mean, the Porta John and all that's going on right now is for that part back
Yes, ma'am.
away from the road. Okay, that's a little bit of clarification. I'm sorry. And I'm not sure, I was confused by all the language being discussed. Some say permitted, some say not permitted. I'm not sure what's permitted and what's not. Can you clarify?
It's a long list. I can send it to you.
Okay, my email address.
Yeah.
It's very confusing.
Yeah, so
Just wanna write
Article 14 of the
Just wanna
zoning
write your email
code is
address
for
right
planned
there.
commercial and office district uses for PC. And under that, 14.3 are all the permitted or allowed uses where we are adding this assisted living facility. And then also, like on the next page, are all the prohibited uses where we are clarifying that the residential uses are the multi-family, single family that we had discussed. But it's part of our zoning code that you can download or that Robin can help you access and explain.
Thank you.
Yeah, she brought her thing. About 45 hours, that's pretty cool. Just going back to his comment about making a change about no multifamily, whatever. It says no residential use. And I think that's more to
One
Well, that's what I was saying,
1014.
I don't have an objection to the change because I don't think it changes anything.
I don't think it changes.
Yeah, I think if
It's just
any-
adding examples.
Yeah, it's just giving concrete examples, but for what you said, if someone comes and say, oh, assisted living is a residential use, we'll be like, no, it's not a residential use.
Yeah.
If you look at the definition of assisted living in the zoning code, plus these residential uses we're talking about are multifamily housing, apartment buildings, or single-family homes. So
Yeah, but I don't know
it's
what.
the catch-22.
Yeah.
So I'll let Robin craft the zoning
Yeah.
the way he feels the best to enforce. Because, he has to remember the zoning code for how many?
225.
I was gonna say 250, 225 individually planned commercial districts. It would be nice to have some
Uniformity.
uniformity.
Great word.
May I be so bold to say?
I'm hoping that the rewrite gets us
Yes.
to
it will.
something a little simpler.
Easier to enforce and to understand.
Yes, we do as well.
Any other public comments?
My name's Chuck Gilbert. I live at 180 Whistling Way Drive in that senior citizen complex. Or right adjacent to this. What's the maximum height, the peak of that building in relationship to the backyards of the people that live in those single condos? What are they going to see?
It's a one-story building. Usually maximum height is around 35, but I think they're well under that.
Yeah.
And I just had that flagged and I removed it.
Yeah,
I was looking at
if
the
I remember
elevation.
correctly, the zoning for this particular lot would permit a
And then what's the
building
distance
up to
between
50
the
feet.
facility itself, the building itself, and those backyards? Or the houses?
Actually, that's something the architects, if permissible, could address. Not labeled on the elevations, but
Yeah, because the plan wasn't final. They would have to meet all the zoning offset requirements, with respect to those distances.
Yeah, that's, I guess, the next step of the process. If it's
but it is a one-story building.
I know that. How high is it?
Like, again, that plan hasn't been finalized. Orange Township permits 50 feet at.
Well, the
maximum.
number I heard was 45 feet.
So the maximum permitted height in this district is 50 feet.
So that's what I heard,
But that's
45
also
feet.
for, like, generally-
That's quite a good,
It's a three-stack.
that's a good sized building that backs it right up in
Yeah,
a single family
this
row.
is not gonna be of that size.
Yeah, because a 50 feet is for like a three-story building.
Yeah, the impact of this should be a lot less. You can
I don't
see
even live down there, but that's my concern.
Oh, yeah.
And this is, it's all on one floor, so I would say 20 to 35 feet is just my.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, if
so
you-
the
if
architect
you
can
look at the
chime in, but
drawing-
that's what I'm thinking.
as of right now, that's the speculation. But
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
So it's quality of life is what I'm asking about.
Well, so what's your specific concern about the?
My
the
concern
heights?
is the folks that live in those properties and have a backyard like you do,
Mhm.
then if somebody built a building that size right in your backyard, and it's going to be very close to the backyards of several of those homes there, that's a quality of life issue for them.
So I don't see this, perhaps being a little taller than the homes that are there right now, but unless I'm mistaken, those are about a 1.5 story, maybe 2-story
that's right.
homes. Those are limited to 35 feet in height.
But they're not looking at those.
So that's why I think this is a good blend between what could potentially be a commercial building of 50 feet high versus a single-story assisted living facility. Obviously, I have to say, because it's assisted living, it has to be on one story or you have to have an elevator. Once you get to an elevator, expenses.
And the other question was, if we're already going to have a tremendous problem with the Wellmark project as far as increased traffic into our area.
A what project?
The Walmart project, that commercial project, because they're building a bridge across the creek there, and so we're going to be inundated by several hundred cars a day, I would
Yeah,
suspect. So how much is this facility going to increase the vehicular traffic for us?
To be honest, I'm not worried about this facility per se, because, one, it's assisted living. People who live there do not drive. People who would be driving are either guests or their staff. They have 35 or 36 parking spaces. I don't think that is going to be an impact on traffic per se, any more than some of the other ones. I think a different facility will make it a lot worse. I think you're correct. The development by the Walmart is going to have more of an impact on traffic than something like this.
I see.
Yeah.
So our quality of life is going to go downhill a little bit based on what's going on here. That's for sure.
Well, I certainly acknowledge that there's a lot of traffic that's coming to.
I don't know. I did a brief survey
that
based on
road.
demographics and things, and my just one facility and something like 900 cars a day. We go in and out of there. That's just a
facility like
guess.
this?
Not that one. I'm talking about Walmart.
Yes.
Oh, I was like, this is
No, no,
not
no, no.
going to.
No, this is
I
not a
understand
Walmart.
that.
I was like, this is not gonna, I think, impact your quality of life that much at all, based on its size,
Well.
the number of intended residents they're gonna have, number of staff, number of.
That's
parking.
okay, but you don't
The
live there.
Walmart's or commercial facility that's going by Walmart, that's a whole different story that has already been reviewed, and approved by the trustees.
Well, it's a personal thing with us because we live there.
Sure.
That ship has sailed, if I may be so bold to say.
And if you live there, you probably wouldn't like it.
I'm gonna say no comment.
Yeah, for this particular facility,
Sure.
I think you'll see that in terms of the height of the building and how far away it is from adjacent properties, it's really not going to provide any impact in a negative way at all. And I don't think the traffic is. This
Just
is
one
going to
more
make the
thing.
traffic worse.
We didn't know anything about this new commercial thing that's already been approved in there. We never, as far as I know, we never got a notice to appear like this regarding that.
Well, where is his location?
I think some folks, people from the Econ,
We never got a notice as far as I know. I didn't get one.
Yeah, can you state the name of the place you're living right now?
I'm sorry?
What's the name of the place you're living right now?
Where am I living?
Yes.
I live in the complex there at Ravines. Courtyard at Ravines. That's where I live.
Okay. Do you happen to know the street address?
Yeah, I just gave it to you, 180 Whistling Way Drive. Around the other corner by the clubhouse.
Okay, I'm just trying to get it up on the screen here so we can see where you are. Okay, so you're over by the clubhouse there?
Right next door, yeah.
I don't think there's any way you're going to be able to see this from there.
I never said I was gonna see the building, but those folks that live down the other end, they will.
Actually, the sight lines,
This
I'm not so sure.
assisted living project does not affect me directly, except I'm a member of a couple of committees there, and we're responsible to try to take care
I
of that
understand.
area.
You're here to represent the residents of the entire.
Yeah, I'm very concerned about the Walmart project. It's gonna really impact us heavily.
Yeah, that Walmart project.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
major. Yeah.
But I'm talking for the people that have to live in that environment. And the more we get in, it's like we're getting circled in there with a lot of commercial activity.
It's zone commercial behind you on Orange Road. Simply, there's. Orange
So
Township-
only voice is to say what I'm saying today.
I understand, but Orange Township has grown. We're at 30,000 people, and it's continuing to grow.
Sure.
It's no longer that nice little farm, small residential community. And there's still gonna be growth there on Orange Road. Those people are going to build commercial facilities there. That's just simply going to
They
take
sure are.
place. They sure are, right.
Yeah.
My philosophy is, our goal is to help plan for that growth. Because growth, unfortunately, is gonna happen.
It's gonna happen.
And we need to make sure that we plan for it accordingly. And so that's why, in my mind, assisted living, this project is a good fit for that location on Orange.
Yeah, specifically
And that's
because it's
basically-
going to be such a low traffic impact.
Yeah, and the low impact, even though it is technically commercial, it should have a low impact.
So
As
correct me if
opposed
I'm
to
wrong, I
something
don't really know what your actual job is, but some of it must be to protect everybody there in that area. Is that
Yeah.
right?
And that's essentially the goal, is, as that's what you said, it's about planning
That's what we want.
what's there, because there is going to be growth there, period. Now, there's no way we could stop that. It's in the code.
Understand?
It's already there. That's going to happen.
Now, in
And
terms
what,
of,
and what we can do is just plan to have the right facilities there.
yeah.
And we do think this is a great facility. I agree. I heard this one a while ago. I said, yep, I think it's an excellent facility for this location.
So it directly affects us, okay, directly. And there's no way to get around it.
Right.
Okay? And so we're trying to cope with it and figure out what we're going to have to do to protect that area. And it's going to be extensive.
Well, in terms of your development that you're in, if you take a look at the map up there,
Okay?
you see where that detention pond is.
I do?
All right, so the two buildings that are directly to the left of that,
Yeah.
I think are the only ones that are really going to have a direct line of sight to this building. Okay?
Well, I agree with you.
And so this is going to be a single-story building with a roof.
But there are two buildings there. See, the people who live there are the two buildings.
Oh, absolutely.
Something that's already being built there right now, right?
Yeah.
Is there something that's being built there, right there?
Yeah.
already?
So this facility is going on a plot of land that in theory could be a 3-story office building, which I think would be kind of terrible for the folks that you're representing.
Sure.
So this is actually going to be a significant improvement. And I think this is going to fit in real well. And you probably haven't had a chance
I guess you're doing
to
the best you can to figure out what you're supposed to do for all of us. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah, within the guidelines of the code.
Exactly,
Yeah,
but
I
with
understand
respect to
that, too.
all of Orange Township. I mean, that's our view. I typically myself have the view for how is this going to fare in the next 50 years, next 75 years. You know, when
Exactly.
I'm long past, because some of these buildings, facilities are going to exist and they're going to impact. So yeah, I tend to try to have a long-term view of these, just as you are for those communities.
So I'm just voicing my opinion about what's happening here to us, so you understand. And if you can find it in your heart to try to take care of us along the way, so we're not as impacted as we're probably going to be, that's all I'm asking. Okay, consider the alternatives or how it's going to affect the people that are already there.
Right, sir. Thank
Okay?
you.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Thank you for coming and presenting that.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Gowan. I live at 596 Chardonnay or Hidden Reserve, sorry. 2 questions real quick. So is there going to be anything done to the landscaping to maybe kind of raise it there so people aren't seeing so much of the building? Like I've seen it places, they build it
I'm
up,
sure
put trees on top and so that it would be a little more pleasing.
I'm sure that will take place, but again, we're not at that point.
I understand. I'm just, again, planting seeds. And then on the zoning map, where are you allowing for green spaces? It's like everything is commercial. When Hidden Reserve was built, there was no anything out here. There weren't all these zoning laws that you have now and all this. No idea that it was going to be commercial on all sides of us. So is there any plans to leave any trees anywhere and make a green space around our area at all? Or is everything going to come down and commercial buildings going up to, again, the quality of our life that we're living there?
green space is required for all of these commercial facilities and everything that's is being built, a percentage. So yes, some of that will all still be there. It's required.
Okay, so like where all the trees are now are gonna be there?
Well,
I can't answer for
we
those
can't answer for
specifically.
that specifically,
can't
but
answer
they
that
are required to have a certain percentage of the property be set aside for green space. And they're also required to have landscaping. That's in our zoning code. So they have to do that. Now, what we know, we don't have the final development plan yet. That Robin will have to look against the zoning code and make sure that they have all the provisions they're supposed to have in terms of how much green space they're supposed to have based on how many acres of property and how much landscaping they're supposed to have based on, you know, the guidelines for landscaping. We don't have that yet, so we don't know like what they're gonna do for water, you know, for a retention pond or, you know, we don't have that information yet because the site has not been fully developed. What we're looking at today is whether or not it is okay to take this planned commercial
I understand it.
property
Right.
and allow a assisted living facility there.
Right,
That
again,
is
I'm
what
just
the-
saying with, you're talking zoning and what's allowed where. That was just a question, like where are you leaving the trees alone so the deer that we have there have a place to live and all that? That was my concern.
So, I mean, so yes, they are required to have a certain amount of green space, but we cannot say you have to preserve this tree.
I'm
That
just
is
saying
up to
like the
them.
treed area, not a tree, just,
It's,
right. Like the area along Orange Road there across from the post office.
yeah, I mean, I understand what you're getting at, it would be nice. It's not like there's a lot on that lot anyway right now.
But it's still there. And there are deer and stuff that live in there. That was my concern.
So.
Thank you.
Robin, do we have a requirement for some sort of a buffer between residential
Yes,
and non-residential?
there is a requirement for a buffer between commercial and residential uses, correct?
Okay,
I'll get taken care of in the final plan.
right.
You're in
So,
charge.
so they can't develop right up until the edge of the
Correct.
No, they
residential.
have to have like at least 100
Yeah.
foot
Yeah.
generally between
Right,
commercial
so,
and
so whatever
residential.
trees are there in that 100 feet are gonna stay there, most
don't
likely.
know.
We don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah, there's no way to speculate and say that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, we know
No
they
way.
could put a retention pond there or
Yeah.
something. That depends upon
Oh.
how we civil.
Gotcha. And that would count as part of a buffer.
Yes.
Already identified myself, but Jean Wolf, 8224 Copper Top Lane. What's the other, the rectangle behind it that we talked about? What is that going to be?
It's called All Our Friends. It's a facility for disabled children.
All right. And I think we're just all shell-shocked from the development of BJ's. I think we're just scared for our property values and our style of living. So I think that's something that we can all agree on. Seeing them breaking through for the road, ugh, It's not-
Definitely noticeable.
yes, yeah. And we're living right next door to it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any further comments from the board? We're gonna close the discussion from the board and close anything from the audience. Do we have, anyone ready to,
So if I may, before you start to get into the motions, so there's 3 separate motions in front of you. You can choose your own adventure there. One is for denial, one is for approval, and then one is for approval with modifications. I apologize, I accidentally left the heading of with modifications in the regular approval. So the approval with modifications has the modification listed below that applicant will revise the language to clarify that it's for District 3. Or if the commission chooses to not proceed with that modification, you can just do a regular motion for approval.
But it's the, I'm still slightly confused. Okay, my denial, I can pitch that.
Great.
But between these two, there's one with, because I think the way you've written it for the staff recommendations needs additional modification, but, so translate these two again.
So this one has the staff recommendation, this one is just approval as is, as
Okay, but you have you're gonna have to make some corrections actually to the staff story, right? Because you not
and it's not.
So this is the one I'm, okay. All right, this one then.
Go for it.
Okay, do I have to read this one?
I don't think
You do have to read the whole thing.
Okay. All right, so resolution to recommend approval of zoning application number ZON-23-01 of James Alt, with modifications. So I'd like to make a motion, that we move forward with this. Motion by Les Pierce to recommend, to the Board of Township Trustees, the board, the approval with modifications of zoning application number Z09-23-01 of James Alt, the pages of which are each stamped received with Orange Township zoning on 2/17/23, requesting the amendment of the currently effective development plan, property owned by Continental Investments LTZ, rezoning case number 19127, upon finding that it is in the interest of the public convenience, comfort, prosperity, or general welfare, or sufficiently in accordance with comprehensive plan, and including additional modifications listed below. Modification number 1, applicant will submit new language that clarifies that the proposed amendment to the development will apply only to District 3.
I'll go ahead and second.
Mr. McNulty,
Yes.
Mr. Bellis,
Yes.
Mr. Pierce,
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Need a motion to adjourn?
Yep, anything else?
We do have two sets of meeting minutes for your approval. I did not send them out until this afternoon, so if you
I have
had,
not read them.
if you're more comfortable postponing those until the next meeting, that is fine.
We'll postpone these
All right.
and